Span of control can be defined as the total number of direct subordinates that a manager can control or manage. A wide span control allows the employee to be more independent, more intellectually placed. Span of control is very, very important. Why? Because it helps to reduce the complexity of work. Good morning and welcome to the session 5 in Unit 3 in Management of Principles and Practices, first semester B.B.A, where we are going to talk about the span of control. Now, before even we start talking about span of control, the word control itself is so interesting to talk about. Why? Because that's what everybody aspires in life to have. I want to control somebody. I don't want to be controlled, but I love to control people under me. So control word itself is so powerful. It is so exciting. Rather, it tries to induce people to get into that leadership command. Now, what is this control all about? Is it something related only to management? Is it something related to life? Or is it related to each and every activity that we do? So let us try to understand what is span of control. Span of control can be defined as the total number of direct subordinates that a manager can control or manage. The number of subordinates managed by a manager varies depending upon the complexity of the work. The moment we start talking about the word itself, that is called a span of control, it is the direct control that a manager would like to have under him. That is the total number of subordinates that are reporting to him in the given day's work. So now what happens is that whether the manager is able to control the people, are you able to gain a traction here? Are you able to oversee the fact that all the people under you are reporting to you, you are in that position? That's what matters a lot. So that's why I say span of control is very, very important. Why? Because it helps to reduce the complexity of work. The next thing is that suppose the manager will have hundreds of people reporting to him, then the complexity will go up. So what we want exactly is that we want a system where the span of control should be limited, well versed, and it should be under the control of the manager. Then only he will be able to take it forward and manage the show. Now, for example, when you're talking about a manager who can manage 4 to 6, when the nature of work is complex, where the number can go up to 15 to 20. Now look at the span of control here. From a 4, when you move to 20, that means you multiply 5 times. So 5x, the value goes up. Though the complexity of work is involved, but the other side, when you have to control people from 4 to 20, it becomes difficult. It is not that easy. Why? Because expectations go up. The nature of working is different. People might find that, it is not easy to report to the manager. I don't find comfortable in talking to the manager. So there are a lot of nitty-gritties that has to be knocked away from the manager in order to do it. So span of control is definitely going to be a very important topic where we see that the manager is able to direct and lead from the center. Now, the next thing is that the term span of control is popularly used in business management and in human resource management. So I'm going to stop here for a moment. Why? Because business and HR are two things that are seriously linked up. They are synced as in one term. Now, the moment I talk about the span of control, it is about the controlling factor. So as a human being, forget that you are a leader, you are a vice president, you are a manager, you are a general manager. Let's leave all the designations for a while. As a human being, would you like to be controlled? The answer is no. You always want to be on the giving end rather than the receiving end. So that is why what happens is that we want to slightly change the meaning of the word controlling. We don't want that control. I don't want that word controlling to be pronounced too many times. I don't want an environment where I am being stuck to a world, stuck to people, stuck to the ideology. I want to be in a scenario, I want to be in a situation, in a system where I use this word control in a positive manner. It means for me that when I talk about that span of control, how many people I'm able to manage and work together. I don't want to get on to the factor that 100 people report to me, so I am the super boss of the company. No, I don't want to project that image because that shows the negative factor of me. That tells that I am not a great leader, but I am a dictator. I don't want to get that sort of an image. What I want to see as a manager is that even if there are 5 people working, I want to work with them. I don't want them to feel that they are working below me, under me. I want them to understand that these are people who will work together. I can supervise, I can understand them better, and I can get the work done as designated. So that's why I would say span of control is very, very important for a manager, because that will tell you how much the manager can manage, how much the supervisor can have a direct link or a control there. Followed by the advantages of narrow span of control. Very, very interesting for all of us to understand. The moment you talk about a narrow span, let's talk about it, because when I talk about that narrow span, it means to say that the work is also limited, people are also limited, which means each one of them can reach the manager. This is a two-way communication. I'm going to put here a manager to the employee and vice versa. So now what happened? Each one of them can get a personal attention. So the manager can come and talk to the subordinates, find out what exactly is happening. If there are problems, issues, the employee can feel free, go back, talk to the manager and say, "Sir, this is what I'm looking into. This is my challenge. This is my problem. This is where I'm losing my control." So the manager feels that this is the opportunity for each one of us to know better. Now, for example, when you are in a narrow span of team, when there are only about 2 or 3 people or 4 people working together, you will have a lot of time to talk to your manager during the lunch hours or during a tea time. Why? Because you will be having that time and opportunity to open up, discuss the various issues of the project. Secondly, the nature of work is usually complicated. Now, that is a fact that you have to understand. Many people think that why is he not able to do the work? But as a manager, I would expect that let us first understand the nature of work before we start blaming or questioning somebody. Now, I might be working in an organization where the nature of work itself is complicated. So you cannot just go back and say that the work is not completed on time. On the other half, I would always say that why don't you take that moment and try to understand the nature of work? What is it? Where is the challenge? Where it is going wrong? Why it is going wrong? What is that we have missed out somewhere? So let us try to understand that. Effectiveness in terms of understanding the work is very, very important here. Now, the next thing is that the effective communication between the subordinates and managers. Now, everybody loves to speak. Everybody loves to express their idea, their opinions. But unfortunately, you don't get the platform to do so. Many people feel that we are restricted. We are rather put back in terms of communication. Now, I want to go and express myself to my manager. I have the fear whether he will accept me or not, whether he'll be in a position to give a patient listening to what I have got. So now what happens in a narrow span is that since the people are limited in the team, I have an opportunity here. I can go back, talk to my manager, bring out an effective communication process, try to express myself. What is wrong? What is right? Why things are like this? How we can change it? How we can go forward? Sir, I feel the challenges are here. What is happening here is that by opening up the channels of communication, you are able to understand the mindset of employees better. So that's why I would say effective communication between the subordinate and managers are of a very great advantage in the narrow span of control. Last but not the least, more layers in the hierarchy of the management that is always there. Why? Because you would see that the layers of management is actually enabling the employee to go through. And now what happens in narrow span, since the layers are on the sides of the employee, now you have the opportunity to go talk and then move forward step by step. So definitely narrow span of control will have its advantages. Now the disadvantages. Too much control over employee might hamper their original talent and creativity. So any time when we are speaking about the pros, we also need to look at the cons, the two sides of the coin, what I typically mean to say. Now, the first thing is that you don't want your manager to breathe down on your neck. You don't want to see that he's literally coming behind you for each and everything, and you feel that why am I being monitored so closely? Why am I being put on the radar every time? Now, the biggest problem in the narrow span of management is that if the manager tries to get too close to the employee in terms of monitoring, in terms of challenging, in terms of questioning, or in terms of finding out what is the day-to-day activity that is being going on, then automatically this leads to a problem. Why? Because I forget my work. I am disturbed where I am not being able to produce my original talent. I'm being restricted. I feel that, I've been completely put in a situation where I can't express myself. And secondly, my creativity is hampered. I might have creative ideas. I might have different ways of doing this work. But I'm not able to express it because I know my manager is looking at me. I cannot just keep the laptop open for hours together and pretend as if I'm working. But on the other side, if my manager feels that I'm whiling away the time just like that, sitting over on the laptop, I'm going to be questioned. I'm going to be called in. So that is where what is happening in narrow span of control is that you are under the direct supervision. That means you need to be more careful. So this could probably lead to a tension in terms of relationship between the manager and the subordinates. The next one. Extend the hierarchy of control results in a long time in decision making. So now this is very, very important for all of us. Why? Because we might feel sometime due to the distance of the hierarchy that has been created between the manager and the employee, the time taken to make a decision reach or to be enacted will go longer. Because there are levels of hierarchy as we have seen. So you need to go step by step and the decision has to come in. So I would feel that the time taken to make a decision is longer when it comes to the narrow span. The next thing, controlling prevents cross-functional problem solving. And this is very important. I would like to spend a minute here. Why? Because in a classroom for manner, what happens is that I have different kinds of students. Every student is unique for me. Why? Because each one of them have a set of talent. Now, each one of them would like to showcase their talent or share their talents among their friends. But unfortunately, if the teacher starts controlling the class too much, she puts a very, very tight bandwidth there, the student will get restricted from showcasing his talent. The student might feel that, sir, I will not be able to help others because my teacher is restricting me. So the same thing happens in a corporate sector also. Somebody else might feel that there is a solution to the problem. I can do it more effectively, more creatively, but here I'm not given a permission. I'm being restricted by my manager who says that your job is only this. Why do you want to do the cross-functional activity? Why do you want to become a consultant or an advisor here? So now what happens in narrow span is that the flow of idea, the flow of thought is restricted somewhere. So that cannot be accepted. That's where I see that narrow span becomes a critically challengeable talk altogether. Followed by, let's look at this word, the wide span of control. One manager, so many subordinates. So let's talk about how a wide span of control comes into picture. In a wide span of control, subordinates are more independent. Now, everybody loves this word, independent. Right from our childhood, we always wanted to be independent. We wanted to do things by ourselves. We always wanted things for ourselves. We don't want somebody to come and tell that, you have to be guided. You have to be told how to eat, how to stand, how to sit, how to walk. No, we don't want that. We want it to be an independent human being. So that's exactly what a white span control would like to tell you here. A white span control allows the employee to be more independent, more intellectually placed. Second, fewer layers of hierarchy of management. So if I have to reach the management, it's a stone throw distance for me, which means to say that literally from this position to this, it's just a matter of time I can reach it. Just like that, I can go there, talk to my manager immediately and say, sir, this is the problem. This is what I want to discuss. It's just a knock on the cabin and you are allowed to express yourself. So this is where I say that the hierarchy is playing a very big advantage. Now the hierarchy is less. You can just walk in, you can talk, and you can express yourself. The nature of work is repetitive. Now, this is what people may or may not like. It's repetitive, it is monotonous, it's not really challenging, but then it sorts of get into your mind where you start thinking about yourself. Am I doing the same thing again and again? The answer is yes. It is repetitive, but then people are okay with it. Now, less direct communication between subordinates and managers. So you don't see a less direct. So you don't have to worry about it. It's open. The communication is wide open. You can talk. You can express yourself faster. So what happens here is that it's a less direct communication. You don't have to worry between subordinates and managers. It's a direct control that starts coming into picture. Now, disadvantage, ineffective management. Moment you leave people free, that itself leads to a mismanagement. Why? Because people think that I'm left to myself, I don't have to bother about anything, I can do whatever I want. So immediately what happens here, ineffective management comes into picture, which is going to be a very big challenge. Definitely yes. Increase workload on managers. Now, since you gave permission for me to leave early, that means you have to do my work. And that's exactly the challenge which I would always like to tell to a manager. A manager might be good, manager might be lenient, manager might be people-friendly, but at the same time, a manager cannot forget that the employee has to do his job. He cannot go and fill into the shoes of his employee. So which means to say that every time manager cannot take that workload on himself. But that's what happens when you talk about a wide span of control. The disadvantage is that the workload increases for the manager. It goes up just like that. Followed by the roles of the team members are not clearly defined. Now that's a very, very interesting factor which I would like to talk about. Why? Because many a times the roles of the team members are not defined. It is not clear. It is just that you're a part of the team. But what exactly I do? Because I told you the work might be repetitive, but many a times what happens is that my role, my designation, my description is not given very clearly. It starts coming into the picture where when I don't have a clarity at all and I start asking myself, what exactly am I doing in this team? Followed by less communication between managers and subordinates, reduce the control. So because I don't talk to you frequently, because I don't come to your cabin frequently, because I don't ask you this question, what are you doing? The control between the manager and the employees starts decreasing. So that can also be a negative impact, because manager now will not have the same force, same velocity in terms of going back to the employee, catching him by the collar and asking this question, why you have not completed the work. Now, what I typically mean by here is that the control factor on a positive side, manager might not be in play every time. So that makes the manager on the weaker side because he does not know exactly what his employees are doing. Followed by, with which I come to the end of this particular session. I would like to thank everybody for joining on the session on span of control. I hope and believe that all the inputs that are being presented through the session will be of a great value and of resource to you, both in terms of practical as well as in terms of theory. Now, with this, we will also try to move on to the next session where we will be talking about the different factors of management. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.